funny.
Whatever. I love we're gonna have to come up with. I love how we always come into the show and like have 20 minutes of background already that the audience has no.
Well, because we're so busy, we rarely get to talk to each other.
I know. We're gonna have to start. We're gonna have to pretend we're starting at 8 and actually just have a third party click the go live button to actually catch the shit we talked about before. But welcome. Thank you for joining us. Not back. We are on our new night, Thursday night, obviously, since it is Thursday. Before Critical Role, so this will get people in front of their computers earlier because everybody needs more screen time.
Well, and on that note, here's an interesting thing that I like to do, and it's probably a little bit childish and silly. I don't know. But I have a vested interest in watching how other people create and how other people exercise their art and what they focus on and what they're doing, So to a certain degree, I do that with the intent of making sure that I find things interesting. I like to see the way other folks are coming up with unique ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. I also enjoy the fact that if you don't publish anything in like 7 months on your channel, I take the time to unfollow for 2 reasons. One, because my library is full of 75 channels, right? And I do generally watch all of them from time to time live, but in general, I watch them through the VODs, through the video libraries, so that I can figure out what folks are doing. What's going on over at Vorpal Tables or Vorpal Tales and Game Blaster and Phoenix Waki and -2 to Charisma, Mini Terrain Domain and Hops and Dragons and all, Lord Gusumba, Hyper RPG, and watching this really interesting world continue to evolve. And my hope is if you don't do anything in 7 months and I unfollow you, that'll be an impetus for you to do something else. Seriously, like maybe that'll help you contact me and go, Jason, you fucking old piece of shit. Why did you unfollow me? And I'll go, well, you haven't done anything in 7 months. I don't know what to do. I've already watched everything you've done. What can I do? So yeah, I don't know.
Where'd you get 7 months? That seems like a very deliberate.
I literally unfollowed like 20 channels today that hadn't done anything in 7 months.
Okay, so 7 months is now the.
It's like kind of my point that I use to determine whether or not people. I had like 20 channels that said last live last year.
Okay.
And it's not because I want to be a dick or that I have time to like reach out to everybody, but I have a genuine interest in watching what people create. And if your channel doesn't do anything in 7-8 months, there's nothing for me to learn. There's nothing for me to absorb. There's nothing for me to support. Yeah. I don't, and so I hope that when I do that, people will try to reach out to me, or, people will say, hey, Jason, we noticed you unfollowed that channel. Did you know that girl's in the hospital with cancer? And I'll go, no, I didn't know that. And then I'll go back and follow.
What a dick you are.
Yeah. and sometimes in this kind of general environment, that's the easiest way. Well, easy is such a horrible word. That's the most efficient way to kind of get a response from someone to kind of figure out what's going on. I try to message as many people as I can. I send out whispers. I like to see what folks are doing. Guild Superior right now is having a Harry Potter gaming kick that I love to go. I can't watch them live all the time, but they have a good VOD library, so I go and watch them in the library because, I would much rather watch creatives and have that going on behind me while I write or while I do stuff, and that's why I do what I do when I follow everybody. But I just thought that was an interesting note over, kind of what we were talking about.
Oh, about not have,
the creative space versus network space versus this space versus that space.
Oh yeah, the stuff that we were talking about before the show started that nobody has any idea what we were talking about. Yeah. No, I agree. That's a good. There's nothing wrong with that policy.
I mean, yeah.
So what were we going to? So we were going to continue the discussion.
Oh my God! Can we do studio notes and also talk about the fact that the D&D Online thing did their product blast today, post WOTC.
I saw that.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Were you able to absorb any of it, or what did you think?
No, I skimmed over it. I didn't. I saw it posted. I didn't actually watch it.
Okay. It honestly felt like a 3-hour-long, like promo.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't know. I get that they're capitalizing on the fact that there's a lot of conversation going on with the whole WOTC thing right now, so it makes sense, right?
What
it makes sense to have that conversation on top.
Yeah, and what you said. So here's a quote. All right. D&D Beyond has been one of our most valuable partners in the digital space for the past 6 years, and we're excited to bring their best-in-class talent onto our team. This is from Cynthia Williams, WOTC, and digital president.
I saw.
The team at D&D Beyond has built an incredible digital platform, and together we will deliver the best possible Dungeons and Dragons experience for players around the world. Now, I will begrudgingly concede that you may have been right when you said this is their attempt to build to purchase a development team. I still think there's more than that, just because this is, if nothing else, such a head start in the digital space for WOTC, since all of their their content is basically already up there and whatnot. But ultimately, you could be right. It may just have been a purchase for a one-stop boxed up with a ribbon on top development team.
Well, and I'll share with you a little algorithm that kind of comes into play with cost, right? Because I know precisely how much it costs there's an investment cost, there's a setup cost, there's your infrastructure cost, there's a lot of unique things that go into building a shop, an IT shop. And the hardest thing to build is the political agreements and the interdepartmental agreements required to make it work correctly. 99% of most companies fail at that because they've created this approach to the way companies are self-motivated and self-operate internally. Very few companies are willing to use the model of, team management, the idea that the team manages itself, and therefore
what is that?
So that's the agile method. You rearrange.
I'm joking. I'm saying,
sorry. But it's because there's a general lack of trust in the employment spectrum, like in the employee concept.
Yes.
So why would I allow this team of people to be self-managed? It doesn't make sense. I've got to micromanage it and all that shit.
I've seen it repeatedly over the course of my career.
So from WOTC's perspective, the question is, did they solve that dynamic before they purchased D&D Beyond?
I would put money on the fact that they did not.
Right. So I think what they're doing is what a lot of companies do. They see a successful shop doing pretty well.
Yes.
And they have almost kind of created their own brand in the process of doing pretty well. And they see it as a shop that can make other things. Right. So they go and buy it. They kind of move around the leadership in a way that they can now absorb the folks that did it well. And then they can start doing what's called your portfolio management process, which is you start looking at your portfolio and you start identifying your products that will fit into the D&D Beyond platform as a shop. And then boom, you go and build your shit. Now, for me to run a 5-person team minus the product ownership and minus the security infrastructure stakeholder, right? Because I can exclude their cost. But if I had 2 developers, an SDET, an engineer, and a UX UI person, which made up that development team, right? That becomes the development team.
Yep.
I have an algorithm that I used to run called a cost basis analysis, so that I could always produce a run rate at any given time of that team's functions, so that I could speak to multiple audiences that make sense. right? So technically what I was building was, okay, this project is costing you $482 an hour, or $2,600 a day, or $10,982 a week, or $5,000 a sprint, or $82,000 a release, right? So the whole idea was to monetize what the team was doing, isolate it as a talking point for the people that understood what it was used for, but allow the team to continue work. And the reality is, I've come to realize that I had like over 50 teams that were producing to production daily and weekly, right? Because that's the kind of customer base we've all become. If I turn on my phone and I'm not seeing a new version every 3 or 4 days on an app, I usually delete the app, which is exactly what I did with the D&D Beyond app. It was so unstable and lacked a codified release process that it, just stopped making sense for me to rely on it and to trust it. So I let it go, and I stopped dealing with it. Maybe you should have bought D&D Beyond. No, because
I know you have an extra $146 million lying around somewhere.
I mean, there is a part of me that would enjoy the idea of being kind of plunged into that pre and like. So when you buy a shop, you do what's called a pre-transformation, a transformation, and then a post-transformation of that shop, right? You do all this analytics to determine where they are in those 3 categories. What is their ecosystem in the pre, the during, and the post. And you organize that ecosystem, and you begin to have these very intense conversations around those ecosystems and say to yourself, okay, cool. Now that we know all this, do we have a CRM to support it? Do we have data infrastructure to support it? Do we have an InfoSec team to support it? Do we have a data warehousing and data laking and Snowflake computer system to support what's going on? So like, if you don't answer all those logistical questions before you jump into buying a shop, you're in for a very rough ride of failure. And that's okay if you fail at it, because as long as you take the parts that worked and turn it into something that's going to work, failure is a good thing, because it's the fastest way to learn how to do something better. But it all it's that mental mindset, that anti-corporate mindset, getting away from, the money steers the committee and focus more on the client and the reflection that the client has on the product, which is why when we were talking last week, it's a fucking stupid product. It doesn't make any sense. But the small piece of it that works for me works just enough that I'm okay with staying with it, right? But there's so much missing. There's so much underrated. There's so much underutilized that if they were to put me in their shop, I could give them a product release schedule where they would be releasing to production on a daily basis. They would have to. There's going to be a point where the customer like me is going to look at this product and go, it's only a matter of time before a clever, small house person who understands the ease of WSDL and API data gathering, for them to realize, hey, they've been exposed to the D&D Beyond API library. They create this really perfectly integrated platform. D&D Beyond's done all the data work, and this really smart UX UI person just takes all the data, rearranges it so that it's such a pleasant experience. For $1,000, this person's just made it easier for me to use. It's prettier, it's more integrated, it's more simplistic, and it becomes a more versatile tool.
Well, we've talked that the real value in D&D Beyond was the licensing.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
I mean, the homebrew.
So basically,
reposit alone, right?
Yeah, and that's still what worries me. I think, from my point of view, Wizards of the Coast basically just not that they couldn't have stopped it at any time, but actually I don't think they could have at this point, because D&D Beyond is so ubiquitous, at least in the player world, that if if WOTC would have killed the licensing deal and basically said, okay, we're done with this, it would have been an uproar from their user base. I think that what they did is they basically just bought back their licensing and a huge head start in their eyes of finally getting a digital platform together. Which again, I'm trying to be optimistic about this, and I think that, I've been very vocal about like why the heck haven't they done this yet, and yada yada yada, and there's so much missing, for that that they could be doing with the community. But if I'm being optimistic about this, then maybe this is finally that realization, and they're like, okay, we got to start with something. My fear is that this purchase is kind of done a little bit in a vacuum, without a lot of the forethought that you're talking about, and it's just going to it's either going to force them to take a really good look about what they need to be doing and how to do it, or it's going to languish in red tape. And it's going to get to the point where it is no longer supported or barely usable by the community. And they're going to get a lot of exodus of users to other more open systems. That's kind of the way I see it going down. I hope it's the former.
Yeah, and I think the one nail on the head that always gets missed is that the rate of consumption of the digital product, right? It's the overall rate of consumption is, tantamount to the viability of it. So I think their initial iteration of focusing on the player centric made a lot of sense, from content management to the limited UX UI exposure that they had. And I totally get that, but to abandon for so many years, and then your first rollout of the storyteller DMGM narrative is that god awful encounter system. Like it's almost like they didn't even try. It's like,
okay, but again, and I'll play devil's advocate again. You got to look at this through the lens of what are your alternatives. Find me a better alternative. And that's why D&D Beyond has become so popular, because for what it does to a degree,
the best alternative is cut and paste. The best alternative is cut and paste.
Yeah, well, okay, but that's the point. In today's world, the customer wants, the dashboard experience to control everything and not have to flip through 12 different things.
Right.
So again, I will contend that through the right lens and understanding that what does work on D&D Beyond does in fact work very well. And again, it's I'm not saying it's a shitty product and we're all settling for it. I don't hate it as much as you do.
Well, to be fair, I don't hate anything. I'm just very disappointed in it.
Well, of course.
And I think being disappointed in it is a more degree of acceptance.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's say I'm less disappointed in it than you, but it is still, the argument is still has to be had in context. And the context is there is nothing else that exists. What blew my mind for so long is the fact that WOTC never clued into that and just did it themselves. It's their IP. It's their product. If they were smart, they would have been doing this a year after D&D Beyond started. I think it got to the point where D&D Beyond became so ubiquitous that, again, they realized, among other things, like, okay, we can't play catch up at this game at this point in time. So let's just buy them. Now, again, hopefully, in the interest of being optimistic, hopefully this is them realizing, yeah, we got to get off our fucking asses with this, and this is the way we're gonna start to do that.
So the one thing I give them a little leeway on is that the closest thing to the challenges that they have right, are the direction that both newspapers and publishing houses went, right? We've already got enough evidence in our historical databases to know that transitioning from hard copy to digital is difficult, time-consuming, painful, and really shifts how you absorb and monetize, your portfolio, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I don't give them much leeway in the fact that they have plenty of historical evidence to gravitate towards to then define how to resolve that issue. Now, however, if you're completely unsure what to do and you don't want to be associated to a failure, you make money off the licensing agreement, you let them struggle in an isolated vacuum of their own creative space. And then as soon as they hit the success marker, then you go, see, 5 years later, look at all that work they did. They did it. This works perfectly. Now we don't have to build it. We can just buy it and it's ready to go. Now that makes sense. Now, the other challenge that WOTC has is there a corporate environment with creators and corporate hacks. And we know.
Welcome to the world of advertising, my friend.
Exactly. And that's where your background comes in, right? You know the emotional kind of like, Jacob's ladder they're probably doing in those
all
kind of environments, right? Yep. And I know for a fact the absolute cost, right? Just the testing division alone of where I used to work was $30 million a year. That was just the testing division. And that was the representation of a headcount that was integrated to teams, and these teams were building software product, right? What they paid for D&D Beyond was our annual budget for just 1 year of development of maybe 5 enterprise projects.
You said you read a fact that the 146 million was basically what D&D brought in to WOTC last year.
Yeah, I think they're 2021. So they did $916 million last year.
It was more than that, actually. It was
it? Because I thought MTG was like 80% of their earnings.
It is, but it was more than 1.3 billion in 2021.
I wonder if I read 2020. I might have read the 916 might have been the 2020, and 1.3 is probably what you saw in the 2021. Yeah. But we all know their major money earner is still MTG, still Absolutely. Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
So the question is that, and to your earlier point, did they just buy back their own licensed material? Like
I said, the other option is to tell D&D Beyond, all right, well, fuck you, we're done, licensing this shit to you. So now your whole company is worthless, and we're gonna start our own team and do it ourselves. Now that we see, what the potential is, that's a lot of work, and it's going to piss a lot of people off. And we all know that corporations don't ever want to piss people off. So.
Well, and I can almost see the meeting now where it's the same argument over the light bulb.
Exactly. So exactly. So I kind of do feel like it's okay. We're just basically buying our licensing back. And again, this is a starting point. Even if they do start building another product from scratch, they've still got all the learning and all of, they can still pick that apart. There's a lot of value in what D&D Beyond has done, whether or not they build off of it or just use it as a model and start from scratch. But basically, I think it was a clean way for them to buy back their licensing without pissing off a whole lot of their users.
And I think you're right. I think a lot of it's going to do with what their plan is going forward for the homebrew content. What their plan is going forward for the general licensing agreements.
I do
like
not
That's
have,
going to really shape things tremendously.
It will, and I don't have any insight into that because because my views on that are completely driven by my hopes and dreams as a content creator. That they ease up on that shit and realize the community they have. They now have the opportunity to also start pulling in money because now that it's official, the digital aspect of D&D is now official. They can basically say, all right, no more of this $2 a month or $5 a month or whatever. Now it's like everything else in this world today, including a fucking note-taking app.
$15.99 per month or $99.
That's a whole nother show. Is like all the shit that has no business being subscription model is now subscription model. Well, D&D actually does have a right to be a subscription model.
Well, they have
so I see this now like, okay, now it's going to cost you $50 a year. You know what? Everybody would be okay paying that if there is a reason to pay it. I know the first question on everybody's mind is, are you going to give me a digital copy of the fucking hardcover book that I just bought?
Right. We talked about that last week.
We did talk about that. That's the number one small tactical detail, but the number one detail on every user's mind is, can I finally stop buying 2 of your books, basically, right. and because people all this time assume D&D Beyond was part of WOTC. So it's like, well, why do I have to pay them twice for my book? Now it's probably going to be understood that you were paying 2 different companies, even though they're still making money off of the licensing for the digital copy that goes right back. So in a way, you kind of were buying it twice.
So I think the most creative thing they could ever do, and I know this is not a popular model, but I think it solves a lot of challenges and problems, and it could potentially be a conflict of interest with RP Guild and Cobalt Press and Bitly and those that buy higher umbrella licenses.
Yeah.
But a general, a content creator license, like if they were to come up with a content creator license, right?
A very simple formula.
And that formula was so simple in the fact that it's very much like a Microsoft, Office formula. Charge me $99 a year.
Yeah.
So that as long as I display the agreement on my page, then boom, I'm ready to go.
I agree with you. Like an Amazon, almost like an Amazon Prime subscription, right? Instead of what you're getting is, instead of 2-day delivery or 1-day delivery, you're getting permission to display that copyright tag and use whatever the fuck you want from there.
Mod your channel, man. There's some asshole trying to do that bot sell shit.
I
think it's showing up on your channel because it's not showing up on my stream chat. So if you go out to your Twitch channel and you see that ALOC 915, best followers, primes.
No, I know. All right, I'm not going to fucking do with it now because I'm going to wind up killing our stream here, but I'll take care of that after. Hey, what? Somebody's on there. Get off of my lawn, you digital fuck. Hey, for the best follows, primes, and viewers on mountainviewers.com, remove the space. Fucker.
Can you imagine being so desperate you can't even do it on your own? You have to build a bot to be an asshole? What a tool.
I'm going to build a bot that just constantly, I'm sure it's been done a million times. But
and what they do, the bots are designed to look for anybody under 200 followers.
I know.
And they just go out and spam. It's so fucking stupid.
Yeah. Wait, so you're saying I should not have clicked on this and sent in my $100?
But see, that's the thing. One of the things I love the idea about this merger, this buyout, and this, you get the D&D Direct drop on all the new product coming out, and you get this amazing opportunity, right? You get this brand new amazing opportunity to really hit the reset switch and really begin to be reflective in the community, the corporate structure, the idea, the journey, where are we going? Now that all the painful part is done, which is all the hamstringing leading up to the check writing, and I'm sure the HR department has already looked at the duplication of staff, and they're going to have to go through all that process because that's the way corporations work. Right?
Yep.
The question is what comes out the other end? Are they going to really grab onto this unique opportunity? Well, yeah. Are they really going to grab onto this unique opportunity and say, hey, it's free for this level of user. It's this much for this and this much for this. Oh, by the way, if you're a content creator,
what the secret is for a company like this? Most companies. I am of the mindset, I do not have a business background, okay? Economics and finance confuse me, but I am very much a student of the school of common sense. It cannot possibly be that fucking hard to run a corporation. Okay. Now, especially with a company like WOTC, with a product like this, again, you have got a product that sells itself, right? It's like alcohol. It will sell itself. There is a want for it.
But I think once again, their big challenge is that they have a dual spectrum within their reality, right? And within that dual spectrum, it's the corporate function versus the creativity of product, right? Because, and in their product reality, they then now have to make a decision to create print or digital.
No,
right?
They don't.
No, they have. Well, they have to, because they have to figure out which one is going to make more sense.
No,
because they have to then go. But you got to remember, they got to go back to the executive committee and say, pick this one. It's going to make you rich.
It is WOTC's responsibility and or Hasbro's responsibility to, and here's the kicker, to understand that that this brand is in the creative space. And if they can realize that, all the shit they need to do to build this customer experience, it's already out there. Fucking use the Patreon model. Like you said, here's your free tier. Here's this, and this, I mean, there's so much they could do with that, because, people are always going to buy hardcover books, in my opinion. All right. Since I started RPG and Company, I bought every fucking book they released. Most of the time, the alternate cover also, and I've got them on my shelves, and a lot of them I've never even cracked open. Right. So there are a lot of idiots out there like me that will always buy the hardcover books, and that's a set cost. Here's what it costs to produce. Here's the cover price. Boom. With the digital stuff, all they're selling is permission to use their content, whether it is to a company like D&D Beyond or a content creator or just you or me as a player. Okay. That's all they're selling. It's like cellular service. They're selling you nothing but air. Okay. They could charge whatever the fuck they want for it, and they could put whatever perceived value they want. Given the dichotomy between the digital content that they have and can produce and the plethora of hard copy content, there is so much that they can do from a subscription model to accommodate literally every type of use case for comfort level of how much to pay a month, all the way from free to fucking $500 a year. I'd pay $500 a year to be able to, for free, for open licensing with a copyright line.
Well, and to that point,
and how many people would shell out for stuff like that and never even take advantage of it?
Well, see, and to that point, I'm wondering if they've run those models yet, right? So let's say they have.
I don't
1,500. Let's say they have.
I don't think they have, because there has been zero digital customer community.
So let's say they have, right, and let's say they have 1,500 vendors out there that pay $10,000 a year for the licensing, and that licensing still has parameters that they have to follow, right? And it's a framework they have to follow. Now, I don't know how you cannot run that number and then say to yourself, okay, we know that there are 182 million people that want to use our product. What if 10% of that is willing to pay $100 a year to be creators? And what if we define that level of creative license so that not only does it self-promote our brand, but we go from a 1,500 vendor model to a 2 million model, and suddenly we're making 200 million a year instead of 18, 20, 30, 50 million a year in licensing.
And I don't know how that. I hope they have.
I know.
That's why I would love to be involved in this process, because these questions are like, if they haven't, I don't know, something at the pit of my stomach tells me this was throwing a dart at a dartboard and be like, okay, it's time. We got to fucking buy them, and then we'll decide what to do with it later. That's okay.
Probably our corporate angst and our involvement.
Probably. I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. But again, there is just limitless. I told you, if they gamify the customer experience around this brand to where you as players, as DMs, you get rated like on Uber and Lyft, riders and drivers. In that regard, you could become brand ambassadors and teachers and instructors and
we know they have
this and that, all the shit, very few.
Right.
Okay. But my point is you gamify the entire experience completely, I'm talking separate from all of your subscription model and everything like that. Okay.
Right.
And the micro purchases.
But right there, I don't think there's an alternative to subscription model. I think that's the only model they can work with. I don't think there's an alternative for them. Yeah.
I agree with you. And I'm saying but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it.
But you said separate. No, I'm saying, I don't think.
I'm saying, in addition to the subscription, to the heap of money that they could make off of subscription model, if you gamify the whole customer experience, okay, you can micro purchases, which we know is just a fucking cash cow. Okay. When you're charging 99 cents or 10 cents or 2 cents for whatever the fuck, I want to get more gold pieces in my account, not my player character's account, but Brian Weiss, my account. And maybe I can actually cash that in for magic items that are then usable in people's campaigns if it is an officially sanctioned licensed, but officially sanctioned Wizards campaign, like Adventurers League, but done much, much better. Okay. Maybe the only thing is maybe that you say as a DM, yes, I am playing under these rules, so that me as a player, if I'm playing in one of your games, and I purchased with my micro purchases or whatever, a part of my subscription package, a +1 longsword outside of your campaign. Okay.
Right.
And then I bring it in and you say, well, yeah, your character can use that because.
And I can see that working very well for an adventure league that's used to integrate and codify groups and regions and
all of
put
that
together
stuff.
this
I'm
really cool fun. Yeah.
The money potential on this is just fucking astronomical. And there's and I said this last week, they're so far ahead of the game because they've already got the community. They just have not to date engaged with that community properly or at all.
I find it interesting that the rate at which they have to aggregate new players is because the social schism of the corporate mentality and the corporate ownership of something that people feel like shouldn't be, profitable or monetized, right? So you have the creative space that's saying, look, this is my, how can they own the license to the word orc? Well, they don't. What they own the license to is orc casting a fireball, and you have to make a difficulty check.
Yeah.
A dex difficulty check to avoid half damage.
Right.
That is what they license.
Yes.
Right. And so people really kind of fumble and struggle over that. And then what happens is they go, well, I'll just build my own gaming system. Right. So they, to their mind, they'll go out there and they'll say, well, I'm going to build my own gaming system. That way I can avoid any of that. And then they sit there and go, okay, what do I call it? Armor. Well, I can't call it armor class. I can't call it to hit. I can't call it hit die. Am I even allowed to use the term D6?
You asking me?
I don't know, right? It's like you start sitting, and this is where I really feel for a lot of those independent creators. And the only other group that I think has a very kind of like-minded understanding of the frustration is the Sony PlayStation wars and the Xbox wars. Xbox doesn't really go with independent creators, and Sony does. Why do you suppose that is? Well, because Microsoft tends to be more of a traditional corporate structure, and Sony's a more stylistic type of corporate structure that realizes they can't run 2,000 development houses. It's easier to rely on the independent labels to help build out their library of opportunities. And it's also a great way to say, hey, we support independent creators, right? So no matter what, WOTC, D&D Beyond and Hasbro have to finalize how they, how that independent creative community and what it means to them. If they 100%. strictly look at it as a valuation proposition, they're going to be in deep trouble. But they can't give it all away.
No, and I don't think they should give it all away.
They got to find that in between. They got to find that in between.
And this goes to that intangible that we were talking about last week. There's definitely a value that can be placed on it, and I think it can be a hefty value. Again, $100, $200, $300, $400 a year type of thing is not crazy, even for a sole out-of-pocket content creator. However, if they don't realize the greater value, I don't think there has ever been a better proof of the phrase, if you build it, they will come. People will pay.
Well, they built it and they
much more. Well, build what? The game, yeah. Here is D&D V2, okay, 2.0. They need to build it again, and what they need to build now is the digital aspect, because that's the world we're in and have been in, and the customer relationship as a whole, And I think that people in the community would be very willing to shell out quite a bit more money, whether it's the guy paying nothing, who now is going to pay $9, or the guy paying $19, who's now okay with paying $50, as long as you make it, as long as you have an intrinsic value in what you're giving, okay, which they could easily do, because again, you're just giving access to more of your IP, right?
Right.
Then I think they could absolutely just fucking clean up.
Yeah,
you're right. But a big part of it is if you keep the content creators happy, then that is, like you said, it's like free self-promotion, and that keeps the wheels turning, and that keeps people needing the core drug. Okay.
Yeah, but I wonder, because I do enjoy watching the schism play out between the generational aspect of the games. There's very few games in the world that could literally kind of have a generational feel to it. There's very few. Monopoly has been around for a very long time, but the only thing unique to it at a generational level is the pop culture reference that the board game gets reproduced in.
Right.
If they make a SpongeBob Monopoly, they're catering to a pop culture generational reference, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have a D&D Monopoly game here. I have a D&D Clue. I have a bunch of them here because I like to play games. But the question that really becomes is first and second edition and a lot of the older brands more popular because they have less licensing restrictions. Right, because most of what people are tripping over are the 5e, core content licensing. Right, everything's 5e, 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 5e.
Well, but but that's because not many people play the old versions.
You'd be surprised. You would be so shocked, man, because I know you're not a big social media schism person or a big social media person. You would be fundamentally shocked at how many people play first and second edition.
Really?
There's a lot of people that still play fourth edition. There's a lot of people that just like using the Roll20 core standard rule set. There's some people that just merely throw out everything and just have come up with their own unique way of kind of running the game as old school as possible. I mean, so much so that over the last 2 years, the acronym OSR has become a common reference point now.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to watch an amazing conversation about it, and I'm not a huge fan of living in the past. We've already gone over that. Nostalgia to me is a very dangerous disease that should be cultivated in proper ways. But if you ever go and visit Captain Courageous over on YouTube, he does an excellent job of doing reviews on old school material and how that old school material is actually being used in modern times in some cases, right? But the younger generations who are finding this game for the first time, they should have every opportunity in the world to pick the way that they want to fall in love with the game. And if they want to fall in love with it as a content creator, WOTC has to get off their fucking asses, and they need to build subscription models that cater to the many different ways people want to absorb this game. This limitation to 5 campaign, fuck you. Charge me an extra $10.
We're both arguing the same. We're both saying the same exact thing. It's the same thing that I just said. There are so many ways.
Yeah, but I feel like their content solution would be a much bigger windfall for you than me, because you're an artist. You're an illustrator.
But that's only a part of it. I'm talking about the whole, what you just described about the tiers of subscription, the amount of content you get, the ability to create under their license, the gamification, all that stuff. I'm talking about all of it. Everything you said, everything I said, all of it. It's just a giant pool of opportunity. And like I said, I'm I'm conflicted because my gut tells me that, like I said, this was just hey, let's fucking buy these guys because shit's happening. But I'm hoping that again, that this is them saying, okay, we got to get in the game, and this is a good start, and we have all these plans. And I guess, I
mean, with your mergers and acquisitions background, working for major companies, what is usually the number one reason why people talk about buying something?
Because they want to gobble up competition,
or they want to make money. And that's kind of saying the same thing in different ways. And if that's really their impetus,
okay, I mean, that's the fucking answer. That's the fucking answer to everything. FTM, follow the money.
Yeah.
In my world in advertising, it is generally that decision is made to either gobble up a competitor or advertising conglomerates, like every advertising agency, almost every advertising agency out there is owned by 4 of the big media conglomerates: Omnicom, WPP, Publicis. I forgot the 4th one, but
they all do the same thing.
They all do the exact same thing, and they all want to be everything to everyone, and that's another reason that they buy up. We don't do this, let's buy up this shop, and now we do this. And what you end up with is this ridiculously fragmented, schizophrenic relationship between a parent company and what used to be 3 different competitors who are now all supposed to work together and play nicely and merge everybody's processes and all that shit. And that's why I have such a bad taste about this. The cynic in me says, oh my God, I could just see how this is actually going to play out. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
but again, I think this is a little bit different of a case. I still stand by the fact that I think they just in a easier way bought back their licensing and have realized, like, okay, we got to get a handle on this.
They bought back their licensing. They got a pretty decent, mature IT shop. They've got a solid digital infrastructure. They've got a solid digital enterprise platform for, implementing, digital product. And now all they need to do is just kind of build an operational, infrastructure around it and make sure that they, are either going to keep it going as is, or if they've got decisions to make about what they're going to implement, then they implement it. But everything I'm seeing. And here's the other thing that corporates don't do well is they don't adapt well to the immediacy of change. Everything that I'm seeing in D&D Direct is shit that's been on the product library for the last 6 months that they've been cultivating and curating to get ready for 2023. The biggest thing, the flagship opportunity for this game has kind of come and went and is about to come again, right? So their flagship opportunity with Critical Role paid off with the creative community. And as soon as they solve the licensing issue in general, I think that'll be a big win. And I hope they do it. I genuinely hope that they come up with a subscription model that works.
Yeah, I do too.
What's really going to sink or swim the future of this brand in general is going to be the release of the D&D movie in 2023. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, well, why is that?
I disagree, because I think D&D fans, the whole community, if the movie sucks ass, we're used to it sucking ass. There hasn't been a good D&D movie ever.
The problem with that narrative is the generations that agree that D&D movies have always sucked were pre-social media.
Okay.
This movie being released during the height of the social media schism of expectation is either going to finally convince people that this is just the dumbest thing ever. It's time to move on to something else. D&D is not what they told us it was going to be, and this movie just proves the point.
Yeah, I'm going to actually disagree with you there. I don't think the movie is going to have as big of a bearing as you think. If it's great, it's just going to I think it's great. They're going to multiply the influx of new players. If it sucks, maybe the influx of new players slows down a little bit, but the existing community is still going to be strong, and the existing community is still going to bring in new players.
I think if it sucks, and I think WOTC drops the ball, it's going to cause everyone to abandon ship and go over to Critical Role and realize that Critical Role is the best curator that D&D has ever had. And people are going to grab.
What do you mean go over to Critical Role?
I don't consider Critical Role and D&D in the same space. Critical Role has a clear understanding of its fandom and the relationship it has with that level of community. And
what do you mean go over from D&D? You're talking about apples and oranges.
Well, not really, right? Because Critical Role built their original platform off of Pathfinder. They then went from Pathfinder over to D&D 5e when Matt fell in love with it. They found YouTube and Twitch, and they started broadcasting out their game, and then they codified their product, and they became their own product. Now, what's interesting is up to this point, D&D Beyond was no longer a sponsor.
Right.
They were partitioning themselves further away from WOTC over the past year. And all of it was based on the fact that WOTC has no social media presence and no community relationship.
No, but you're talking about going from a player-involved immersive game to just absorbing somebody else's content. How is that? I don't understand the statement going from D&D to Critical Role. They're two different things.
Well, no, what I mean to say is that a lot of times in the social media schism, you play on Friday and you buy on Monday. Yeah. Right. If all you ever do is just consume Critical Role and you learn your play style that way, you're no longer absorbing what WOTC and all the D&D shit is doing. You're just absorbing the community side of it. They're just absorbing that. So if they don't get a handle on the outcome of a movie, which is the biggest social media flagship you can have now, and they don't have a proper social media in place for whether it's successful or a bomb, it's just going to be kind of that, okay, WOTC, you've been this 10, 15-year D&D miracle, but you know what? I'm just going to go over here now and do something else with other people's content related to D&D. RPG Guild, Kobold Press, Critical Role.
Yeah, but you're still using their game system.
But the consumer's not going to view it that way. As long as they could disassociate themselves from WOTC and Hasbro, and they can convince themselves they're playing their game, they just don't fucking care about WOTC anymore. They just don't give a shit.
I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't.
Well, there's no right or wrong. That's the problem with social media. There is no right or wrong.
I think that this watershed event, like you said, Critical Role was a watershed event in the gaming industry, especially for D&D, obviously, but in the gaming industry itself, Critical Role was a watershed event just because of the presence, okay, and expanding that presence to the to the outer world, if you will. I think the second watershed event was COVID, and everybody realizing that
was the digital event. Yeah, that was
the digital event. Exactly. Yeah. That is where I think WOTC is right now. Either they recognize that and they jump on it now, which hopefully this is the beginning of, or they're going to be left in the dust. And then it won't be people still playing the core rules but absorbing other people's contents. It'll be people actually creating other rule systems or going to play other games completely.
There are a lot of other rule systems.
I know there are. Shit. I know. And the fact that D&D is still king in spite of itself should be a wake-up call for WOTC, especially since, out of 1.3 billion, a tenth of that or an eighth of that was D&D as opposed to Magic.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's crazy.
Let's do this for 10 minutes. Let's play the game. Okay, we're each going to take turns. One thing, a maximum of 3 sentences each.
Okay.
What do you want to see in, let's say, the coming year from D&D? It could be very small, tactical, granular functionality, or it could be, a whole bigger thing. Just a punch list of all the stuff.
So the 3 things that I'd want to see.
So start with one. We're going to take turns. We're going to flip.
Okay. So my first thing is a subscription program that makes sense from A to Z.
Okay. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that's probably number one. I want to see, I'm going to go ahead and use give me both copies of the book that I buy, at least at a heavy discount. If I buy the hardcover, discount my digital copy for a few bucks. If I buy the digital copy, discount my hardcover by half, whatever.
I think my second thing would be a integrated dashboard for either a player or a DM.
Yes. My next one would be covering the topic that most of this conversation was about the licensing. Also, a very simple, easy to use, beneficial to both parties licensing formula. I would say that's probably takes the number one spot with a proper subscription model.
And I think the third thing I'd like to see them do is officially recognize D&D Beyond for what it is and get rid of versioning. So no 6th edition, no 7th edition, no 8th edition. Recognize what the brand truly is. And at this point, you're playing the game called Dungeons and Dragons, and that's it. I
would agree with that. Absolutely.
And then use your digital representation to foster the creative outlet. And that's it. And leave it alone. Let it grow. Let it be holistic. Let it be organic.
Yeah, totally.
And you will make fistfuls of money.
I could see that. I'm going to say another one would be a streamlined digital mapping solution, aka Roll20, Tailspire, all Vorpal board, all that shit, but one that works seamlessly, integrated with everything else that we're talking about, and allows that final piece of the puzzle for remote play.
Yeah, I think if they did those 6 things in 1 year, it would change the landscape for them.
Oh my God! Yeah, absolutely.
Number 1, it would show they care. Number 2, it would open their portfolio to products that they didn't even know existed.
Not only that they care, but that they understand their users and their community.
Right, and I kind of use that ubiquitous term of caring to kind of mean all that. The third thing, it always operate in trifecta. Always think of things in terms of 3, because then you never have any ties, right? And then the third trifecta of all this outcome would be to finally maybe give WOTC the chance to spin off from Hasbro and become a true curator, originator, creator, and kind of buck the trend of the traditional corporate mantra and become something new. Dare I use the word progressive, because it's been made into an evil word.
Right.
The idea of moving forward with new concepts and ideas and change the very nature of how someone or how anyone would absorb that product. Barry Bot.
Hey, Barry Bot. Nice of you to join us for the last 5 minutes.
Druids rule. How dare you?
So the moral of this, for anybody anybody watching, either in the WOTC camp or Hasbro or D&D Beyond, now WOTC, this episode can serve as both of our resumes, and you should hire both of us, because we've already got all the answers. Okay. And we're basically giving it away for free here. So throw us a fucking bone. All right.
Oh, you can give away all the answers you want, but if you don't know how to make the questions up and make the people absorb the questions and then give the individual answers required for success, it doesn't matter what
tough,
we know.
Man. It's not tough. It really
it's
isn't.
not. The hardest part about doing it is admitting that you can't and then figure out how to do it. It's the hardest part.
Yeah. Yeah. So I expect a phone call from somebody for a one-on-one interview.
Mr. Weiss, we would like you and that other old fuck to cease and desist.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Yeah, this is WOTC calling. Oh, awesome, really? Yeah. What's the fucking deal with all the trash talk and shade, motherfucker?
This is the legal department.
That sound
you just heard was the sound of my briefcase closing, because yes, I still carry a briefcase.
And
inside of it is a very important document telling you to shut your mouth because you don't know what you're talking about.
You said fireball one too many times on this broadcast.
Whiskey.
Whiskey. What?
Yeah, all we gotta do is say the word whiskey every time we say fireball, and we're fine.
Oh, right. That's right. That's what I'm gonna do from now on when I create. See, now we're just gonna shoot the shit for a few minutes. That's what I should. I should do that from now on when I create any content. Is just throw, all of my homebrew stuff. I'm just gonna throw in parens behind everything. You cast fireball, whiskey, yada yada yada. DC, District of Columbia, D6, something.
So funny.
Yeah, I have not broken any licensing at all. It'll be like a cipher. It'll be like cryptography. My rule book will be 1,000 pages long, boiled down to 20 once you figure out the fucking word search.
1,000 pages long? So you're writing for Pathfinder, are you?
No, that's what I mean. The cipher. That's all the cipher and the word search shit. It's actually 20 pages of rules.
If I know that if I could sit down and spend a year writing a 2-page primer for playing a game, I could do it. I just don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharon. It's actually my wife's. I wore it specifically today. I'm glad you noticed. I'm going to send you some stickers or a shirt or something. Death Rabbit. Psycho
Murder Bunny.
It's Psycho Bunny, yeah.
I'd Psycho Bunny, but I always call it Murder Bunny.
Murder Bunny, I like that better.
Yeah,
but no, it's actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's actually giving me impetus to order some new PVC vinyl patches and put them on some pink hats or some hats with some
my
pink.
Skateboarding days, dude.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it was funny because I remember my very first skateboard that I broke when I was doing half pipes and ramps.
Yeah.
It wouldn't actually break into 2 pieces because of the number of stickers that were like underneath it. So when I did a really bad like landing on a half pipe, I heeled into the middle of it, and because by then we're not using rails or guards or anything.
Right.
Broke it in half, but it wouldn't come apart because of all the layers of stickers that I had underneath it.
That's awesome. I love the bottom of the skateboard deck, and just plastered with so many stickers.
And I had a really cool friend, and we try to stay in contact. It's hard. His name's Eric, and his dad opened us a skate shop. So when we weren't at school, in our young teenage years, we were running the skate shop.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so much fun.
That is amazing.
But, I love. But yeah,
so I got some. I'm getting some PVC patches made of the logo, and I'm gonna stick them on some pink, because pink has become one of my colors. If you haven't noticed on my Instagram feed. Oh, sticker buff. All right. Stick around in the green room after the show so I can get your address and send you stickers. That sounded fucking weird. That sounded very Harvey Weinstein. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it sounded pretty stocky.
Email me through a third party. My lawyer will call your lawyer, Sharon, and I'll send you some stickers.
I actually think I might have her email, so as long as she gives me consent, I can probably forward that to you, or I can get it. It's no big deal. She would love to get stickers.
All right, I'll send you a whole bunch.
So what do we want to talk about next Thursday? What are your thoughts?
I think we need to have a guest on next Thursday.
Okay. I'll leave that up to you this time. I brought in the last guest.
Okay. I'm going to see if I mentioned it to Malcolm, Gentleman Game Master. I would love to have him on. I haven't talked to him in a while. So let me check out his schedule. Jason.
Uh-oh. Now I'm in real trouble. By the way, Barry Bot, get a profile pic up on your Twitch handle.
You're looking very
cool.
You're looking very teal today.
Yeah, and you have a image of Mira in the Grain Lands campaign that you can use now because you paid for the art, Barry. You have art of Mira now. You should be using it. Put it all over the place because it's
awesome.
Cool.
And actually, if you would like to join us on an episode, the invitation is extended to you also. I know you and Jason are over on D&D Club. Sometimes
we did a real fun one on Saturday morning. We talked about women in the game.
Oh, awesome! I wish I could have been a part of that conversation.
We had Emma Soros on, myself, and Barry.
Nice.
And it was really interesting because you kind of had like three kind of generations to it. You know, you had Barry Bot's perspective from a newer player as a woman. You had Emma Soros as a game master and player, as you know, growing into the game, and then now being a professional DM, and then kind of my overarching understanding of just generational play and what I experienced from the 70s through the 80s through the 90s, you know, and then, you know, the eventual collapse of the game with 4th edition and then its resurgence with 5e. So yeah, it was a fun combo.
The 4e extinction event.
And it was so unfortunate too, because some of the amazing writing that they did during that edition was just it was fabulous writing. It was really cool. Bards got their own book.
I know. That kind of goes towards your, you know, forget about the editions shit, right?
Right.
Just keep writing content. Pull content from whatever. Just Gygax Days was scary to look at. Oh yeah. What the hell was I gonna say?
I don't know. We're talking about content and Bards getting their own book in 4th edition. And we were talking about D&D Beyond being the new face of the Enterprise. Therefore, you know, do you play D&D? Yes, I do play D&D.
Yeah.
What version?
I'm talking about the more
D&D.
I'm talking about the more inane shit that we were talking about just over the past 5 minutes. I know what I was going to say. I also have one of my players who has now been playing with me for a number of months in a campaign that's been going on for 2 years. But he popped in about 2/3 of the way through, and I think he either played once or twice as a kid or had never played, but I think he never played, but had always been interested in it. And he has taken to the game exceptionally well. He understands the rules. He understands, you know, the flow of play. He's become a really good role player and very attentive to the details in the game beyond just combat, and also really good at keeping metagaming in check, which is really hard for new players. But he's very, very good at that. And anyway, the point of this is, I'd like to have him on sometime too, because that's also another perspective of a very new player who kind of came into the game after many years of wanting to try it and finally jumping in. He's actually here in Chicago. I have not met him in person, but we're supposed to have a beer sometime. But he's here in Chicago with me, even though we play remotely.
Convenience is still a convenience. It's like, it's really funny because I'm in my studio. I'm not at home. I have a full-fledged blown out studio.
Yeah.
So like when I run all the games, it's like everybody else just gets to get up and go make something to drink and go to bed. I have to get up and shut everything down.
Yeah.
organize my notes, shut it all down, walk out to the parking lot, and drive home at 10:30 at night. Hey, just because I'm in
studio, motherfucker, I gotta take over the goddamn living room every Wednesday night and sequester my wife and son to the bedroom, and then break down and set up. Fucking hate it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I do enjoy having a really nice space to be able to be, because like Saturday, the Grain Lands on Saturday had a great finish to the session. We had a lot of fun with that session. One of the hard things, sometimes the hardest thing to do is to let those player immersions be given the opportunity to really kind of come into existence. And I had a great 15-minute interlude where I had developed an Oracle kind of interaction with the team near the tail end, and it was a bit of a reveal for Sharon's character. But I get amazing affirmation from people, and it's absolutely amazing when Mike reaches out to me and says, "Oh my God, it's so much fun. I finally felt like Abraxas was doing what he is," and then Keen reaches out to me, and then Sharon reaches out to me, and it's that level of the and I switch to my most rudimentary Viking because it's the only Viking I know.
You're killing me.
I don't know why, but it's the only one. So all of my characters had slight inflections like this, and some were a bit more oily than the others, or the feminine version of the rudimentary Viking. I mean, I try. And if you're not trying, then you're not trying.
I'll give you that.
And it's a super easy voice to do because it's just a slight inflection, and you can sound like a Viking or a entertainment Viking.
Entertainment Viking. I love that. Oh my God. All right.
And we also did what was the other one? Age of Empire, which is not a Twitch game, but it is one of my pro games. Mm-hmm. And we had a really fun finish to that one as well. A very nefarious individual, stumbled upon the group, and that's going to play out. And the Wednesday game had a real fun conclusion this week. The Tuesday game, I got to introduce a new player to the group.
Awesome.
The Monday game really had a unique kind of like finish to it, I begin to realize that the more you play, the more creative opportunity you have, and I really wish there were like 50 of me. I really wish.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, are we playing Sunday, or did I see that we are?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 or 3 Central.
I believe we're sticking with the 1 o'clock because it's easier for you. So that's
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock Central for you.
Okay, cool.
Because we decided that Vince has a family thing that he was going to have to go to that weekend. So he's going to be able to play, but he wasn't going to be able to do the Ren Fair. So the weekend of May, the first weekend of May 1st, we are taking that Sunday. Well, actually, no, we're still probably going to play that Sunday. No, so May 1st, that Sunday of next weekend, we're going to go to the Ren Fair.
Okay.
Before the new 2BA2 lockdown comes in.
Next time I'm in LA. How far north are you from LA? I forgot.
I'm east, not north.
How far east of you?
Probably an hour and a half.
How far west of LA are you? Like 50 miles, right? No,
hey,
how far?
Thank you.
Awesome. How far east of you?
About an hour and a half.
Huh.
I don't know how well you know our freeway system, but
I avoid them like the plague.
Then you don't go anywhere if you avoid them like the plague, because there's no way to go anywhere without getting on our freeways. They quite literally are the only way to get anywhere in the state of California, unfortunately.
Well, but I'm talking about within the LA area. I avoid freeways.
It's just you jump on one of 3 major freeways. You go east, and then you go south,
What is that?
And
The
then
10?
Yeah, you take the 10 east.
Okay.
Go south on the 15 on the Avocado Highway. Come down into my neck of the woods. Temecula, Hemet, that whole area, and that's where we are.
All right. I'll be there in 3 hours. Now, next time we're in LA, I gotta see. You don't like parking lots? What? No. I sat on the 405 once down to San Diego for about 12 days and almost blew my head off.
So I got a funny story about that, but we had a gasoline truck blow up one time out here on the 15, and it literally
I don't know
melted.
Why I find that so funny, but
it's funny because the most rudimentary and like expected disaster in the world, and they have no easy fix for it. So. Yeah. It did so much damage to the freeway that for 2 weeks you couldn't use that part of the freeway.
Oh my God!
And when we had a flood,
see, that's the difference. That's the difference between California, between LA and Chicago. See, there they close it down and they actually fix it. Here, that just becomes another pothole.
Well, and you're absolutely right, because everywhere else where you have 4 seasons, they have learned how to be responsive to inclement and difficult weather. In California, we have 2 weather conditions, warm and hot.
Well, the joke, so I don't know if you've ever heard it, but the joke in Chicago is that there's 2 seasons, summer and winter and road construction. And the shit still never gets fixed. It's just nothing but holes. All right, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But. All right, well, I think it's clear that we have reached the end of our show tonight. Join us again next Thursday. This will be our new time. Me in my pink Psycho Bunny hat, or possibly, well, no, I'm not gonna have that soon, but I hope to have some pink RPG and Company hats. And Jason, the master of the clone, the 50 clones of Jason, running.
Well, you know what's so funny is today, this week, I finally did that thing I like to do. Like, spring cleaning's a real thing. Yeah. Only I did spring cleaning today on my digital stuff, so I can kind of get things more organized. And I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm now officially running 9 games.
Jesus.
And it's never.
You do need clones.
It's never that visceral until you like sit down and organize. Now I'm at the point where I promise myself that I'm going to sit and write 2 hours a day, because I've found my passion for writing again. I'm enjoying
that,
and it's
awesome.
all of the fact that I'm in this professional environment and I have these amazing people that trust me to run these pro tables, and I can with clarity state that I'm a professional DM, and I feel that I finally earned that moniker through all the affirmation of the players, the affirmation of great relationships I've met or made and codified with you and a lot of other people. If there's one thing I would love to impress upon people, this game called D&D will open your heart and open your world to hundreds of new kinds of people that are going to influence your life forever, no matter what you do. And that's the beauty of this game. That is the real reason why this game has become so popular over such a long generational period of time, because it allows us to be the one thing we need to be as humans, and that's caring. And it's okay to care for each other and meet new people, have friendships, have relationships, and have differences of opinion and enjoy the conversation around it. So join us next Thursday when Brian brings on a guest and we expose that poor soul to this madness, psychotic individual that is me.
I was gonna say that was such an eloquent lead out. I'm like, I have nothing left to add. We'll see you next week. But we've already shot that to shit. So, by the way, on Sunday, I've been thinking. I think Grimholt may have an accent and demeanor change. We can either write that into the story, or we could just say, you
could do a Ford maneuver.
No,
You've been hiding in plain sight,
and
now you can be like.
Not going there. Not
now
going
you
there.
could be like a typical British accented dwarf or Scottish dwarf.
No, I'm just going to go the standard Scottish dwarf because you get that fucking swearing yell a lot, and I think that fits better for a wild magic sorcerer.
So following that stupid gnome. Get your asses back over here. Have some haggis.
So yeah, I just wanted to give you a heads up that might be happening. As shocking as it might be, the other one just wasn't working for me. So we'll
hang out
because
I want to talk to you about some stuff. So close us out, Bri.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next Thursday, same time, 8 p.m., same place. With our mystery guest, if I can dig one up, and a mystery topic, if I could think of something, and otherwise, it will just be more of this nonsense. But thank you for joining us. Sharon, thanks for joining us in the chat, and be kind to each other. Oh, is that? Oh my God, I just stole a Matt Mercer line. Shit. Wow.
Be kind, be safe, play a game. It's good for your health. I promise you, you'll love it.
Better. What he said. What he said. Ciao.
Love it.